first time I spoke on this was about 3 years ago. I was speaking in India, in a church in New Delhi, a big church in New Delhi, and lots of the people they witnessed to are Hindus. And the Hindus often said this question: why does creation point to the God of the Bible? So this was a really interesting thing. They asked me to prepare on this topic. So a really fascinating thing. So I think I have 10 arguments why, when we look at creation, it points to a Christian God. Most of them are a Judeo-Christian God, but even the Christian God at the end, I wonder if you can imagine what some of those 10 things are. Because it's not an easy question to answer. So just think for a minute what you think those 10 things could be. But then at the end, the very last part, because I have to go before the end, I have a question for you, which is, what is different about Christianity with other religions from a broad point of view? And again, my final slide, I have 10 things, but I won't show you what's on the slide. You can think for yourself 10 important things that make Christianity different from other religions, which is kind of connected to this, but different. This is specifically looking at creation. So just to introduce, God there are 2 books of Revelation. There is the book of the Bible, the spiritual revelation, but there's the book of creation. And the Bible itself, in Romans 1:20, says, well, creation is a book. It reveals God. Not as much as the Bible. The Bible reveals the way of salvation, God's love, God's character. But creation reveals quite a lot. God's wisdom, God's power. So there are 2 books. Isaac Newton once said there is the spiritual universe and the physical universe. There are 2 books of Revelation. So these are the 10 things I go through. So some of them relate to creation itself, but some of them relate to culture. But we just go through each one now. So first of all, there's a harmony in creation. When I look at the created world, I think this planet Earth must have had one designer. And I'll explain why you see harmony in the Earth. In engineering, we have a joke that if you design by a committee where everyone is equal, you get a bad design. Because someone says, I want a window here, well, I'll have one over here and I'll have one over there, and you end up with a mess if you don't have a leader. But if you have a design team, but with a leader, and he makes sure that everything is harmonious. And so one of the things I said when I was in India, Hindus have 80 or 90 gods, and they would have created a mess if they had designed the world. So harmony points to one God. And there's also harmony in relationships. We have these beautiful food cycles, chemical cycles, what are called symbiotic relationships with a specific bird and a specific flower. So you see a very harmonious creation. That's one God, one very wise God. Also, a harmony of faces. If the world had evolved by chance, you would have creatures with the most strange faces, and yet every creature has a face. 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose. That would not have happened by evolution. and it wouldn't have happened with multiple gods, but God has deliberately made animals to be not too different to us. We can relate to animals. So we see harmony, and a harmony of colours. And I mentioned the harmony of the colour scheme of creation just in the last talk. So we have so the first one was a very harmonious creation. But secondly, the earth is very unique. And this is a really interesting recent discovery. Because 25 years ago, astronomers started to discover planets outside our solar system. They're called extrasolar planets. Now, when they started 25 years ago, they said, we're going to show those Christians the Earth's not unique. But 25 years later, they're saying, actually, the Earth is unique. So now, according to Hindus, they definitely believe in extraterrestrials. They believe in multi-universes, not just multi-worlds. And so if you go back before 25 years ago, Christians were saying, you're not going to find another Earth, you're not going to find extraterrestrials. But Hindus and other religions were saying, yes, you will. And so there's a conflict there. And so the universe is revealing that the Earth is unique. And it's only the Judeo-Christian religion that teaches the Earth is absolutely unique. And if you're so I'll just give you one specific. The solar system, and especially the Earth, has very circular orbits, almost perfectly circular. The Earth, you can't recognize it not being a circle. But all of these extrasolar planets are always in really elliptical orbits. So much so, someone even wrote a scientific paper, saying, why are all these extrasolar planets elliptical? It's really strange. They even wrote a paper, and that's the paper. Really just not in a circle, but the solar system is really quite unique. And that's definitely, the uniqueness of Earth is definitely a Judeo-Christian thing. This is a good one. The Earth is full of fossils, fossil graveyards, and that's the Judeo-Christian, that's not in Hinduism, Confucianism, that's in the Judeo-Christian Bible, the Great Flood, Noah's flood, Genesis chapter 6. And as Christians often point out, you have fish caught eating another fish. So this is a sudden catastrophic thing. And a lovely example, this one is from May this year. It's a wonderful article. They discovered 10,000 dinosaurs in a small graveyard. And then in a moment of inspiration, they said, we think there was a flood. Amazing. And these academics paid a lot of money to do their research. We could have told them that. So this is May this year. An incredible fossil graveyard with 10,000 fossils. And they said this must have been the most incredible flood to pack so many dinosaurs in a tiny place. And there are lots of examples of that. And so this kind of thing, that is a strong evidence, the Judeo-Christian biblical evidence. And this is a really important one, languages. My youngest daughter, I have 3 daughters, my youngest daughter, Tabitha, she did really well at school. She went to a Christian school. My colleague said, oh, that Christian school, hasn't got good facilities. She got into Cambridge, the top university in the United Kingdom, after going to a Christian school. And she studied languages, and she was top in her year. She got a first-class honours from Cambridge, so the top at the top. And she's a very strong Bible-believing Christian. In fact, she co-authored the book on sport that I wrote. She co-authored when she was 21 years old. She co-authored a book with me. So she studied at the top university in the UK. Some people say the world, but I'll just say the UK, Cambridge. And she was taught by the top language professors in the world. And they said to her, they do not have a clue where languages came from. They haven't got a clue. They said, because there's no such thing as a simple language. Every language is complex and it just appears. And so to me, this is a big evidence. So it's not just what we see in creation, but in culture, language, that this is really important. Where did these languages come from? And some languages seem to be... I met someone from Finland, and they said that if the Finnish language doesn't seem to be very well connected. Some languages are really kind of unique. And that's the Tower of Babel. Okay, well, here's an example. Review article, The Mystery of Language Evolution. And that's an understatement. And so it's just one example, that 2014. But lots of examples of, where did languages come from? Simple, but important. Then number 5, 7-day week. The 7-day week is right around the world. And this is a little bit famous, but in 1929, the Russians said, well, we don't like 7-day week. We'll have a kind of a different one where we can extract more work or something. And they had to abandon it because people hated it. We want to go back to a 7-day week. So where did that come from? It just seems to be everywhere, and it just seems to work. Like, so an evidence, a cultural evidence. Marriage. Of course, in modern times, the Western world is trying to destroy marriage in lots of ways, not just gay marriage, but living in sin and the last 100 years. But what is fascinating is every culture around the whole world, in their history before modern times, had a biblical marriage model. One man, one woman, for life, important marriage. And you can go through all the cultures of the world, and sometimes what we would call lesser cultures are now more than us because of what we've done to marriage. But again, where did this model come from? That is all over the world. The preciousness of marriage, the importance of marriage, one man, one woman for life. Sadly being degraded, like we live in this fallen, degrading world. But that points to Genesis, like the 7-day week. So we see relics of the creation ordinances in Genesis. We see the creation of marriage, the 7-day week, language in Babel. We see these things. And we see death and decay. Even, we've been talking about death and decay today. Well, we see that in the world. The dodo is a famous extinct animal, the mammoth, the Tasmanian tiger. It's estimated each year over 2,000, maybe 10,000 species, between 2,000 and 10,000 species are extinct every year. But how many new species are produced? None. So everything is degrading, exactly as the Bible says. Evolution says things are progressing, but the reality is things are receding. So this receding is exactly what the Bible predicts. And Only the Judeo-Christian religion describes, sin and degrading. Other religions can't cope with sin, origin, answer, but Christianity faces that head on, this whole thing. So even Decay of the World is pointing to the Bible. The uniqueness of man. When I was in India, they were explaining that Hindus are very keen to see humans as animals. And we're not much more important than a cow, especially a cow. Whereas Christianity sees man a little lower than the angels. But according to evolution, we're just above the beasts. And according to other religions, we're just above the beasts. So this is a big difference. The Judeo-Christian religion sees man up there. And the evidence is that humans are special. Our ability to appreciate beauty, to create music, art, mathematics. The evidence is the Bible's correct. Humans are special, spiritual beings. Actually, going back to the previous topics, one of the biggest battles in academia is academics are supposed to think that we don't have a spiritual dimension at all. We're just an animal with no spiritual dimension. And I meet a lot of academics who are not happy. They think, but why can't we think of humans as spiritual beings? No, you're not allowed to do that. We're only allowed to be an animal, treat humans as an animal. But of course we're not. And so this is an evidence pointing to the God of the Bible, made in the image of God, our unique brain, our emotions, our spiritual being. So mankind points to the God of the Bible, certainly not a Hindu God or those kind of religions. So far, Jews and Muslims would agree with me. So far. But that's progress anyway. It's the biblical God. But here we are. This is now Christianity. Planet Venus. Revelation talks of the morning star. Astronomers have said it's fascinating. There's one special light, Venus, this really special light. Well, first of all, the moon. I mean, I should add the moon to my presentation because the moon is very special. Only the Earth has a large moon. Really, no other planet has a moon like our moon. So God has given us the moon in the night sky, and the Bible explains that, the greater light to rule the night. So I really should add the moon. But after the moon, then is Venus. It's a very special planet that is so bright in the evening and the morning. And the Bible says that's a picture of the Lord Jesus, of the special one, the Lord Jesus. Venus reminds us of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, whereas the moon would support a Judeo-Christian world view of creation, Venus is particularly, this one is specifically for the Christian. It makes sense that God would create this special planet that's very close to the sun, very big, and has an orbit that it appears. And it's so bright that sometimes that's the only light you can see. You can't see any other star, but Venus is really, really bright. Genesis 1 says God made the stars to shine light on the earth, and for signs and seasons he's created comets. Not so many that we just take them for granted, but enough that in a normal lifetime you'll have a few things, an eclipse, a comet, God saying, don't think about spiritual things, just enough. Not so much, but enough signs. And Venus is one of those signs. Yeah, actually the most important this is the most important, the Bible. The Bible always has to be the most important piece of evidence. The Bible is unique. It's the oldest book, and it makes sense. If you're a designer, you would leave a testimony. It wouldn't make sense if God created the world without leaving a testimony. And so this does tie in with creation evidence. And the Bible is a very special book. It's been proven to be reliable. It's the oldest. There are things in the Bible like predicting a countless number of stars. Well, the James Webb Telescope has just confirmed 2 years ago there's a countless number of stars. But the Bible said that. And so the Bible's been proven to be a reliable record in other areas as well. You can go to museums, and archaeologically it's a very reliable book. And so we mustn't forget the Bible is an important evidence pointing to a Judeo-Christian God, but specifically the Christian God. Now, this is an appendix because I'm not 100% sure about this myself, but I think it could be correct. This comes from an Answers in Genesis website, and they claim that creation reveals a Trinitarian God, which obviously would be the Christian God. I'm kind of still thinking this one through. It could be correct, but it wasn't one of my 10. I thought I'd do 10, and I've got to add the moon, so that'll be 11. So maybe this is number 12. I've got to convert this to 12. Anyway, so you could, if you're interested, you could look this up on Answers in Genesis. And it says the physical universe consists of 3 aspects: space, time, matter, Trinity. Space itself consists of 3 things: length, width, height. Time, past, present, future, 3 things. Matter, in a way, you can describe in 3 ways: energy, emotion, producing phenomenon. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? And God is so clever, he does do things in an extremely poetic way. He's so clever, he could easily have done this to reveal the Trinity. You may have, has anyone come across the Passion flower with the numbers of the Passion? Yeah, I can well imagine God designed that with an image of the Passion. God is so clever at multifunctioning so many different things. It's absolutely the kind of thing God would do to design certain things to remind us of certain biblical truths. So this could well be true. I think I won't do my next slide, because I think the next slide has the, am I correct in saying the next slide is what's unique about Christianity? Yes. Yeah, so I won't show that, because you've got to think about it. So my next slide will have 10 things. This is different, it's not adding to this list, it's more abstract. What makes Christianity, in a spiritual way, different to every other religion? I mean, we won't do that now, but that's just to explain that. But I thought now you could give feedback on this, or ask me questions, and give me your own comments and feedback on all the 10, plus the Trinity one, and tell me if I've missed out. Like, I realize I do need to add the moon. The moon is a very significant part of creation, and a very unusual part of creation. You know, the fact that, and even the monthly cycle of the moon, it's just too perfect. God is, and I've heard atheists say, what a wonderful coincidence, we've got this moon. I've often gone out at night. I like going running at night and doing other things, and I've used the light of the moon to get to places. We take so many things for granted today with our lighting, our cars and things, and our watches. But years ago, people we're really grateful for the moon, for the time, the seasons, the light at night, in a way that we don't appreciate it. And you just think of the moon, it's just too perfect for the needs of man. And the fact that the Bible explains that is the purpose of the moon, to be a great light at night to give us help. So I do need to add the moon to that presentation. But so now we can have a kind of a question discussion on that. Yeah.
You also said that there are some reminders of God that He creates signs. It's not too many, like Venus. And what do you mean exactly? Like He doesn't show too many signs, but He still shows signs.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
too much or too.
It's a good question. Because I can also give another example of that. But if we had a comet every single day, we would just take it for granted. If we had a comet once every 500 years, most people wouldn't see it. But it's really interesting that on average, you would have one comet in your lifetime, maybe 1 or 2 total eclipses in your lifetime. And to me, this seems just so perfect that God would give us a really special event, but not so many we just take it for granted. But there are lots of things in creation like that. For example, if the galaxies were further away, well, actually, if I start with the stars in our own galaxy, the stars of the Milky Way galaxy, if the Earth were at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, the sky would be black, and we'd only see a tiny blob of light on one if you were living in Australia. If we lived at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the night would be as bright as the day. God has positioned us in exactly the right place, that we have a dark night, but it's not so dark we can't see 1,000 stars, and on a very clear night you might see 2,000 stars, and it's exactly the right number. If it was any brighter, it would start to compete with the moon, and if it was any less, we wouldn't see a lot of stars. It's just so perfect for the testimony, the heavens declare the glory of God. But the fact that the Bible explains these things, that they're there for signs and seasons, that the heavens declare the glory of God, what we see ties in exactly with what the Bible teaches us. And I said earlier, the Bible explains the stars are countless, stars without number, and we've now proven that. How did Job know that? And Job says he does things we cannot comprehend. How did he know that? Solomon said, the growth of a baby in the womb, we can never understand. But how did he know that? And there are other things in the Bible that have been proven to be correct. So we see this balance, a perfect balance.
I'm also thinking, in no other religion, you see that when it's written that it affects the brain and the health of people. And I think that's just a special thing, a gift that God gave us, that when we live in relationship with Him and read the words and accept it, believe it, that it will, in fact, influence our brain, our thinking, and our health and our being, because God's light will shine upon us.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Bible speaks of health, the Proverbs, health to our bones, health to our bodies. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, and I've been the head of my department in my university with 600 students. If you go back 100 years, out of 100 students, you expect 1 or 2 to have a mental health problem, 1 or 2. When I joined in 1997, it had gone up to 4 out of 100 had a mental health problem. Because I was head of department, I had to meet these students that had a mental, and we noticed it was rising, not just in my university, but all universities in UK and Europe. At the moment, it has gone up to 30 in 100, and they reckon it will be 50 in 100 in 10 years' time. It's going up like this. So the effect of discarding the Christian worldview, the mental health problems, there is a relationship between, well, physical health, mental health, spiritual health. It has a big consequence, and if you work in an area like a university, you realize how real this is. Yeah.
These factors take us away from Christ? I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is a big topic. Yeah. I've written one book called He Made the Stars Also, and in that book I argue a Christian worldview. We don't believe in aliens. The earth is unique, at the center of God's purposes in the universe. God so loved the world, not just a world, and the evidence confirms that. I give a whole talk on this because NASA wastes billions of dollars. I've tried to tell them they could save billions of dollars if they stop looking for something that does not exist. But they're spending a lot of money looking for something that does not exist. But it also makes sense that, especially in dark times, when people are spiritually blind and dabbling in dark forces, then it becomes very possible that Satan will give his own signs. God gives signs in the stars, but the devil has his own signs on earth to make people think that there are forces or aliens. In the same way, evolution is exactly what you'd expect from Satan, who wants to blind the world. And people believing in aliens is exactly what in fact, in my talk I say the devil wants us to be looking at some planet 10 trillion miles away for an answer to life. Instead of looking at the Bible under our noses, he wants us to be looking out there or wondering what some spiritual light that someone. So yes, I think there's no doubt there's a lot of distractions. The devil wants to distract us, at the very least distract us, and at the most get us sucked into dark forces. If you're interested, Gary Bates has written a book on that whole area of it's called Alien Intrusion. Yeah, of course, languages change over time. Actually, there's evidence that languages are being degraded over time. For example, just to give you one example, in English, we used to have 4 words for love. Like the Greek, yeah? And in order to describe a forgiving love or a fatherly love, a Christian love, But in English, gradually it went down to one, love. Well, love is just a simple thing, according to modern thinking. And there are other evidences that language is becoming kind of degraded. It's going downhill. So it is changing, like biology, but not changing for the better. But yeah, degrading, yeah. And language is important because that shows we're made in the image of God, able to communicate emotions. Yeah, God has designed humans to be emotional beings. We can make 10,000 facial expressions, which the evolutionists can never explain. Why should we make so many facial expressions? But God has designed us to express our emotional state. So we are absolutely designed to be emotional beings and to express very articulately our thoughts and feelings, which makes no sense by evolution, because a hunter-gatherer doesn't speak too much, but we speak a lot. So language is a really important thing. Did you think I was missing anything in my list of evidence for a Christian God? Or were you not convinced by any of the ones? It emphasizes the importance of Genesis, the creation ordinances in Genesis. And it's interesting that the devil has attacked those creation ordinances. The devil hates marriage, and he loves to attack marriage. The devil hates gender, male and female. He wants to attack that. He wants to attack the Lord's Day, Sunday. Actually, I'm missing Sunday on here, the day of rest. That's another cultural thing. But the devil attacks those ordinances because he knows if he can destroy marriage, Sunday, male, female, he's virtually destroyed society. So he will go for those things. And the devil's clever, so he doesn't do it all at once. He starts subtly with marriage, not with gay marriage, that comes later. He starts through Hollywood. He says, lust is okay. You don't have to wait till marriage, have relationships. And then later, we'll now have gay marriage, and then now we'll attack gender. So he's done a slippery slope of the Genesis ordinance, and so gradual that some people didn't really notice what was going on. Because if he does it too quickly, people... In fact, the devil may be doing the transgender too quickly, because when things happen too quickly, people react. So he may have overstepped the mark on that one, but it's just making the point that the Genesis ordinances are particularly important, but they're also evidences of the biblical God as well.
You said that marriage worldwide proves to be a Genesis book of one man and one woman. In Islam and even in
Yeah.
which state there were 3 or 4 wives.
It's a good question, but those who were really truly believing Jews would have known in Genesis it's one man and one woman. And even at the time, for example, of David and Solomon, they knew they were being judged because they were going away from God's model. Solomon suffered because he had many wives. David suffered because he was unfaithful. And God strongly judged those two men. In fact, when I speak to young people, young men, if I'm speaking to young men, and I'm warning them against immorality, sexual immorality, pornography, I ask them who are the 3 strongest men that ever lived. Samson, David, Solomon, and they all fell with sexual immorality. And so they should not be too confident. They're not stronger than these men. And of course, Islam, they've corrupted things. But Genesis is very clear, 1 man, 1 woman. And yeah, some kings in the Old Testament went away from that, and they went away from other things, and they were judged for those things. By the way, the evidence for young Adam and Eve is incredibly strong. The evidence that humans have not been around for more than 6,000 years is incredibly strong. If humans had been here for 1 million years, marriage would have been corrupted, 7-day week, other things would have been corrupted. And if you look at the archaeological evidence of technology, everything was invented in the last 6,000 years. Horse riding, pottery, language, tool making, everything happens in the last 6,000 years. And even secular atheists say that they cannot understand why there's no history after 6,000 years. So even though the age of the earth is quite a controversial thing in Christian circles, and the evidence for young Adam and Eve is very, very powerful, which that would explain why there is a strong culture of marriage around the world, and everywhere it's degrading. But even in recent years, you can still see a great tradition of marriage around the world.
If nothing is older than 6,000 years, how come in all schools and all academia they're talking about carbon dating that is a lot older than 6,000 years? It's something I can't get my mind around. Every time they come up with carbon dating, I'm like, okay, how does that fit in? Where does that come from? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, this is another huge topic. I'll say a couple of things about the age of the earth. I personally find it easy to believe in a young earth, 6-day creation, and probably because I'm an engineer. But to say a few things, radioactive decay. To give one example, uranium decays into lead, and it takes a long time if you just want to wait like millions of years. So someone says to me, there's a lot of lead in the world, and therefore the world must be very, 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 very old. So I say to them, okay, if you put yourself in God's shoes, what are you trying to do? God is trying to design a world for mankind. That's Isaiah 45, verse 18. He created the world to be inhabited. God knows we need metals for different things. And lead is a very important metal. It's a very soft metal. It's used for a lot of things, guttering, but also other engineering applications. We need lead. So God wants to give us lead. So what did God do? He gave us lead directly. When God created Adam and Eve, they were created at 21 years old. And the apples were mature apples on a mature tree. And he gave them mature lead. So when someone says that lead must have come from uranium, well, it didn't have to come from uranium. God can create lead. God is not constrained to creating uranium and not lead. So when you have a supernatural creation made in it, so I find it very helpful to speak of a mature creation. God created a mature creation. So yes, it is correct that if you want lead from uranium, you have to wait 500 million years. Yeah. But if God created lead in the first place, you don't have to wait 500 million years. So if you believe in supernatural mature creation, it's a completely different, and you can't prove it through science. It's just your starting point and your worldview. I was once in a vineyard in Italy, and there was a big kind of tourist group, and the manager said, has anyone got any questions? And I put my hand up, and I said, how could Jesus turn water into wine in a split second? And he looked very confused, and he said, I've never had that question before. And he said, well, it takes at least a year to make wine, and if it's mature wine, like Jesus made, that would be like 100 years. So it must have been a miracle. So I said, thank you. If they had analysed the wine that Jesus made, they would have insisted by science it is 100 years old, mature wine. It would have looked 100 years old, but Jesus made it in a split second because he's not constrained by the laws of chemistry and physics. And so when he created the world, you can't measure. You can't measure age.
But things are seemingly old.
They can look old. Sometimes they can look old.
But the thing is, when they find certain objects, artifacts that have been man-made, and they use the process of carbon dating it, they date
Okay.
it to more than 6,000, 10, 20, 30,000 years ago, and I'm like, how did they get to those? Okay, on this specific thing about human artifacts, it's nevertheless true that if you look up when was horse riding invented, they will say in the last 6,000 years. But the artifacts you're referring to are normally axe heads and kind of spears, and it's never technology, it's never a wheel, or it's not normally pottery, it's not normally specific artifacts, it's normally axe head. What I'm saying is it's normally dubious things which are dubiously dated. It's a reality that bits of technology like the wheel and horse riding are confined to the last 6,000 years, and that's where it's really embarrassing for the evolutionists, because according to evolution, for the last 250,000 years, there would have been people as clever as J.S. Bach and Isaac Newton roaming the world. You then have to say, hang on, these super clever people did not stop and think, if I sit on a horse, I could ride from A to B. And if I planted seeds, I could have a farm. How can you explain that for 250,000 years, we had J.S. Bach's and Isaac Newton's not inventing anything like proper technology? It makes no sense. Absolutely, it's mind-bogglingly that people could just think that we've been here so long and not designed hardly anything. And then if you actually there's another one I missed on my list. If you look at the growth in population, it comes back to Adam and Eve. Or Noah and his family. It comes back to recent times. If you go back, the world, humans cannot have been here for a long time if you just extrapolate back. And especially this point I'm making, that people are very clever. They're not stupid. They weren't just roaming the world as hunter-gatherers, not bothering to invent anything, because humans are very, very inventive. Yeah. Yeah, and another, yeah, so thank you for adding that. And another one, of course, is dinosaur bones with real blood, DNA. One of my colleagues in the UK, Steve Taylor, is a good friend of mine, and he's now published papers on blood and DNA in dinosaur bones. So it's a very controversial topic, but a key thing is you cannot measure something that was made supernaturally. It can't be proven scientifically. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
What about different kinds of humans that are found, Homo sapiens, but other
Sorry, I missed that. Is the echoey room?
Like what kinds of humans, like Homo sapiens, but then some people found.
Okay, sorry. Okay. When you look at the fossil record, it's very, to me and to other scientists, it's very clear that either you are seeing ape creatures or human creatures, particularly if you look at the foot, the arched foot, and particularly parts of the brain. It's a very controversial area in academia. And as usual, the students are not told about the controversy. But to me and other people, it's very clear. It's either human or apes. There's nothing in between. The missing links are still missing as much as they were before. That is a good question, or maybe one last one, and then I catch my plane. Yeah.
Well, I was very interested with what you told about the light, chase light after the sinful. And can you perhaps tell something more about it? Because it affected the whole earth, that the light was come, and the earth fell to darkness.
Yeah. Do you mean the creation week, when the sun was created?
When sin came.
Sin came.
To set,
Yeah.
the people, the animals, they were all shining bright in creation and afterwards.
Okay. Before the fall of Adam and Eve, I think it's very possible that every animal could sing, for example. In Job 38, it even talks of the morning stars singing with joy. Even the stars may have had a kind of a song. It's impossible to really imagine how beautiful creation could have been right in the beginning. There was a huge change after the fall. So your homework is, what is different about Christianity?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a safe trip.
Thank you very much. God bless you.